up, I realized that my biggest passion is helping others, and my dream was to be a motivational speaker. Throughout pregnancy, we hear a lot about postpartum depression, but never postpartum anxiety. And prior to having my daughter, I didn't really have any issues with anxiety, so it was kind of a shock. I was scared to let anyone hold her. I was constantly checking on her, and it wasn't the normal thoughts of, oh, is she okay? It was, if I put her down, she was going to die. Postpartum anxiety is more these ruminating thoughts that something bad is going to happen to your child. I started reading books about it, and I just started joining moms groups and finding supports. The other thing I felt about sharing my story is that it took away the shame, right? It took away the guilt. I think the biggest thing is don't feel guilty about how you feel postpartum and get help.
Hello, Sat Sri Akal, Namaste, Adab. Friends, I'm Sharon Ali, and you're watching Hunny Walia shows. In today's episode of Through the Eyes of a Woman, we have with us Zakhiyya Bhaidani. Zakhiyya is a social worker and a mother of 2 beautiful children. Welcome to the show, Zakhiyya.
Thank you.
So Zakhiyya, let's start off with, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up. Would you have any ambitions when you were little or as a young adult? And yeah, give us some insight on that.
Yeah, so I was born in Calgary, and then I was raised here in Edmonton. In my younger years, I'd have to say my ambition was to be, a mermaid or a princess, as every girl wants to be.
Absolutely.
But as I grew up, I realized that my biggest passion is helping others, and my dream was to be a motivational speaker and just inspire as much as I could.
That's great. That's great. So currently you are a social worker.
Yes.
But you did have a little bit work in forensics.
Yep.
So what made you kind of do the changeover?
I loved the forensics world, but it's very difficult when you have a family, right? So I made the switch to primary care, and it was the best decision I ever made, and I absolutely love being a social worker in primary care. That's great. That's great. So do you find that was your calling to help? Yeah. It's a lot of working in mental health with just different age ranges, and it's perfect. It's such a good fit. That's great. And you have 2 young children of your own. I do. So yes. It kind of falls or combines in there, right? Absolutely. So that's great. You get to experience, the young children at home. Yes. So you kind of know how to interact and do all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So your first child, speaking of the mental health, after you had your first child, you were actually diagnosed with postpartum anxiety. That must have been really tough at that time. Yeah. I mean, throughout pregnancy, we hear a lot about postpartum depression, but never postpartum anxiety. And prior to having my daughter, I didn't really have any issues with anxiety. So it was kind of a shock when I found out that the thoughts that I was having and the feelings I was feeling wasn't normal, and that it was time to get help. Right. Yeah. So when did you start feeling like you were actually going through something? It was right away. It was as soon as she was born, they placed her in my arms, and for some reason I had this thought that if I put her down, she was going to die. And it was an intrusive thought, and I couldn't get rid of it. And the anxiety sort of manifested in all aspects of my parenting, and I was noticing it. I was scared to let anyone hold her. I was constantly checking on her. And it wasn't the normal thoughts of, oh, is she okay? It was, if I put her down, she was going to die. So it was quite a scary thought, and I wasn't even able to sleep. I was watching her. My hand would always be on her, making sure she was breathing. I just had this impending doom feeling. And it's interesting because I worked in mental health for so long. And if anyone had said this to me, I would have been like, oh, it sounds like you're experiencing anxiety, but I couldn't see it for myself. So I was really lucky that I had family members, and I had my husband who was a little bit more vocal in the sense that, maybe that's not quite normal what you're feeling. And I was able to talk to my doctor about it. Right. Yeah. So you had the fear that something would happen to your child. Did you ever have the fear of someone would do something to your child? Is that a different thing altogether? When you say postpartum depression and anxiety, are those 2 different things altogether? Yeah. So postpartum depression is, a really difficult time bonding with your baby sometimes, or you've got such intense emotions like crying and inability to sleep and sometimes or sleeping too much and just not being able to bond with your baby. Postpartum anxiety is more these ruminating thoughts that something bad is going to happen to your child.
Okay.
And they're not logical sometimes, they don't make sense, but it's this idea that something is going to happen to your child.
Right.
So you go to all lengths to protect your kid, or you're just unable to let them be apart from you for fear that something's going to happen.
So it's strictly about the child, not about yourself, that you're going to hurt the child.
Exactly.
It's strictly that the child is going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was there anything in your childhood or in your past that maybe kind of had an impact, or something happened to you that maybe made you feel this way or have anxiety, or do you think it was strictly?
I did have a brother before I was born pass away from SIDS, which was incredibly difficult on my mom. And I think part of me maybe just always knew that.
Yeah.
It's interesting because my mom has such strength and resiliency, and to be able to go through something like that, to me, it's absolutely unimaginable. And I think that fear of something happening to my child was just there. Right. Yeah.
Right. So you did go through something.
Because I kind of secondhand experienced it from my mom, unfortunately. Right. And I've seen her struggles with it, but I've also seen her strength. And that's actually what helped me come through my own anxiety is my mom's resiliency and strength.
Exactly. And that's what helped, because moms are such a big impact on our lives.
100%.
And, how we think and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I know it must have been really hard at that point for you to actually, so you were diagnosed with this.
Yes.
So what were your support systems? Did you actually go see a therapist? Did you kind of educate yourself?
Yeah. I had known about cognitive behavioral therapy through my work.
Okay.
So I started reading books about it, and I just started joining moms groups and finding supports.
Right.
And I think that's really what helped, is joining the moms groups, right? And just getting that support and that help from other moms that are kind of going through the same thing.
Right.
The interesting thing is that the anxiety never goes away. Right. It's still, my daughter's 4.5, and I still check on her in the middle of the night with the baby monitor, as well as my son.
Yeah.
But it's manageable now, right? So when they're at day home or when they go for sleepovers, the thoughts will creep in of what if something happens, and I'm able to calm them and say, okay, logically speaking, let's think about this. We know they're safe, they're okay, and so I'm able to talk myself through it a little bit better.
They say self-talk is a very, very important thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really helps. It helps control the mind too, as far as telling yourself. It's what you tell yourself. Actually, that's what the mind does. It's basically, that's with any situation, right? So that's great. So the anxiety started shortly or right after your baby was born. How long did it last? Like, how long did it take you to kind of settle it down and kind of be able to accept it? And
I think it would be the first couple of years.
Okay.
Right.
It was a while.
Yeah. It was the first couple of years. I was lucky in the sense that I didn't need to go on medication, and if you do need to go on medication, that's absolutely fine. Whatever you need to do to cope. I didn't need to go on medication, so it did take a little bit longer. But it did start again when I was pregnant with my son.
Okay.
Right. So I started to notice that I had a lot of anxiety when I was pregnant with him, and I would go for a lot of ultrasounds because I was very scared something was going to happen to him in utero.
Yeah.
And then when he was born, because I had sort of worked on my tools while I was pregnant, because I was starting to see the anxiety come back. When he was born, it wasn't as bad.
Oh, good.
Right. So the anxiety wasn't too bad, and that one I was able to, I would say, rein in about 6 months.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. And that's wonderful, I think, because you made yourself stronger and you knew. And the biggest thing I find about anxiety in general, because I've actually suffered from some myself, is trying to control it.
Yeah.
And I always say the mind is such a powerful thing, and it's what you got to keep feeding your mind that no, you're okay.
Yeah.
You're not going to die, nothing's going to happen. And it's such a hard thing. But once I think you've got that down pat, and you kind of, you can use that experience with others, in which this case you are doing. So your experience that you've had, you've read books, you've gone through it as a woman who's had a couple of babies. How do you educate others? How do you share your experience?
My biggest thing is just talking about it, right? And I feel that there's such courage in being vulnerable, and it's actually therapeutic, right? To share your story and to know that other women might be able to hear your story and say, hey, I've been there, or I get it, or I can seek help and it'll be okay, right? I don't have to live with this.
Right. And
the other thing I felt about sharing my story is that it took away the shame. right? It took away the guilt that motherhood wasn't the greatest at the beginning, and I was very anxious at the beginning.
Right.
And I felt really guilty about that at first. I felt really guilty. I was supposed to enjoy motherhood, right?
Yeah,
that's what they say is motherhood's a glorious time and you're supposed to enjoy it. And so I felt guilty because I didn't. And so sharing my story and kind of normalizing postpartum anxiety has taken away a lot of that shame and guilt that I feel.
Yeah. And that's something a lot of women feel as well. And a lot of women need to know that it's okay to feel that way, right? And it's like, there's nothing wrong with you. It's a normal kind of thing that happens to all women out there, most women out there, right? So so when you say, do you hold sessions at all? You're a motivational speaker, you said.
Oh, I wish. Yeah, I would love to be a motivational speaker. That's actually my dream. Okay. Not really sessions, but I share my story in any platform I can. So social media. Right. I do talks whenever people want on sort of the world of body positivity postpartum and postpartum anxiety and riding this roller coaster of motherhood. Right.
So it's usually through social media then. Do you find people actually, they contact you and they want to hear, more about it and how you dealt with it and kind of share their stories in that sense as well?
Yeah.
A lot of that too.
And I really welcome that because I feel like, moms in general, we're a tribe and we're there to support each other. And the more support we can give and the more support we can get, the better off we are.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And just talking about the whole situation and to experience that other people have gone through this and not just yourself, right? I think that's the biggest thing because in these times you feel like you're alone, right? You feel so alone and so, upset, emotional, all these hormonal feelings all together that when you hear somebody else, right, saying, okay, no, I've done this, I've gone through this too, it's okay to go ahead and oh, that's great. And you said that you do some nutrition kind of stuff and yoga stuff. Do you do that on social media? What kind of stuff do you...
I actually started exercising in December. Well, I was exercising before, like through my whole postpartum journey, but I really started getting serious about it in December. And I've noticed a lot of the mental health benefits of it, right? Just eating better and exercising better. I'm feeling physically stronger and that's helped me feel mentally stronger as well.
Right.
So that's been really helpful. And I've also started practicing gratitude. So every time I feel anxious, I switch it and say, okay, let me think about a few things I'm grateful for.
Right.
So that really calms the anxiety. Right. And I've started doing that with my daughter and I'm hoping one day to do that with my son. Because I do find that it helps us all be calmer.
Right. So you write things down?
I do.
You? And,
yes.
Okay. Yeah. So what is some advice that you can give women out there that are struggling with this? What can you say? What kinds of tips or from your experience can you give the women out there, the viewers?
I think the biggest thing is don't feel guilty about how you feel postpartum and get help, right? So even if you feel like something's a little bit off and you're not sure, if you're not sure that, hey, this could be anxiety or it could just be a normal passage of motherhood, just get help, right? It's okay to get that second opinion. It's okay to get that validation that, hey, I'm okay, or hey, there's something more I need to look into. So just reach out for help and don't ever be scared to share your story.
Right. And I heard that with anxiety too. If you keep your mind busy and you start doing other things, to distract your mind from becoming anxious or when you're about to become anxious, that's actually a good kind of healer too, as far as to not go through that panic attack or anxiety as well, right? Yeah. So is that something that you've kind of done with yourself? Or?
Yeah. I used to keep my mind quite busy and then I found that I was denying the anxiety. Right. And then it would just come back worse later on for myself. Okay. So what I do instead is I welcome the thoughts in and I say, okay, they're here. Let's think about them. And then I sort of counteract them with rational thoughts, right? So if my thought is, my child or my children are going to go to school and they're going to die, I try to counteract it with, okay, let's think about this rationally. They've gone to day home and school often. They're fine. If I'm really worried, I know the day home will contact me if there's anything wrong. I can always call and check in. So I think we're okay. Right. So that's been really helpful, is to sort of process through it. And it makes the anxiety not feel like so much of the enemy anymore. Right.
Exactly. So a big part I would say is acceptance then.
Absolutely.
Accepting the fact that you are suffering from anxiety and you have to actually just deal with it, basically.
And that it's okay. It's okay to have anxiety and it's okay to have depression and it's okay to deal with a mental health concern. Right. And the more you make it the less likely you are to forget to fight against it and be ashamed about it.
Right.
There's no need to be ashamed about dealing with a mental health issue. It's normal, and it's a small piece of who you are. There's so much more that makes you you, that it's just a small piece of who you are.
Right.
And it can be a strength.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. And it gives you that experience, gives you, if your children or someone did go through this, you have that experience to share with them and just to kind of help them heal and get better, right?
Yeah.
Who was your biggest support system or support systems while you were going through this? Or people?
Yeah, definitely my parents, my in-laws, my parents, my husband.
Yeah.
My husband has been incredibly supportive. He watches the kids so that I can exercise for my mental health.
That's great. And,
he's always there to, for me to talk about my anxiety, and there's no judgment. Right. And that's really big. He's my number one supporter when it comes down to this. If I feel like I need to take a step back because my anxiety is too much, he's always there to pick up whatever needs to be done so that I can have the time to do so.
That's great. Yeah. And I think it's very important that he be one of your number one supporters, because the two of you together with the children all the time, right? Yeah. So him understanding what you're going through. So did he kind of educate himself, or did he kind of, as you were going through this along the way, kind of?
Yeah, we had to have a really open conversations about my anxiety. And so again, I had to put pride aside, because, we try to be a super mom and a super wife.
Absolutely.
And I had to put my pride aside and say, this is what my anxiety feels like for me. This is what the thoughts that go through my head. And this is what I need from you in order to help me is, don't say it's okay, everything will be fine. Just let me talk through it and let me process it, and just ask how you can help in that moment, because it'll change. Right. So we really just had to have an open conversation about the anxiety. And, I've been blessed in the sense that my son is now 15 months, and I would have to say my anxiety is really minimal.
Oh, that's great.
Very minimal.
Great to hear.
I think in the last 4 or 5 months, it's maybe I've had an intrusive thought once or twice.
Wow.
Like, it's been very, very minimal.
That's wonderful. Yeah. That is so good to hear.
Yeah.
So good to hear, with all the hard work and, just kind of self-talk in that. You see, it really does help, right?
Yeah. It only pops in now when they're sick, right?
Yeah,
when they're not feeling well, then your mind goes to that catastrophizing moment of everything's going to go wrong, right? So, but it's been much better, in terms of the children. Yeah.
It's great to hear.
Yeah.
So I know with anxiety too, sometimes it can come to very extreme cases where you've actually suffered from like panic attacks.
Oh yeah.
And you can't, control, you feel like you're out of control and you can't breathe and that sort of thing. Has that ever happened to you?
Oh yes. Yeah. And it happens when we drive on the highway in the winter with the kids.
Okay. Yeah.
Then I always get a panic attack that something's going to happen and we're going to be in an accident. And so, there's been moments where we've had to pull over or we've had to turn around and we couldn't go to Calgary or whatnot because, I was hyperventilating. Like I just couldn't. I couldn't focus on the journey. It was more just something bad happening. So again, calming techniques really help. Right? We can't control what's going to happen. Right. So saying to myself, well, nothing's going to happen. That's not realistic either. Yeah. So I just say, we'll deal with whatever happens. It's just, let's focus on something else. Music is a really big help. So I'll listen to music, or my husband and I will talk about something else altogether just to distract the mind.
Exactly.
So that's been helpful.
That's great. That's great. And then you've been doing some yoga too. Now, do you find yoga helps with the anxiety, or is that just is that kind of why you do it, or the exercise all kind of combined in one, or does yoga help more?
The yoga is more so just to find some moments, some pockets of quiet, because my mind is always racing anyways. I'm a type A personality, so I have a high energy, so my mind is always going. So the yoga helps me to calm myself, but I find the weight training and the cardio is what's helping the anxiety. Oh, okay. Right? Because I'm leaving it all out on the floor and I'm sort of sweating out the anxiety. Yes. And that's been really helpful.
Yeah, I heard that's really good too. Oh, the endurance exercise. Yeah. The cardio is what really, it really relieves the stress. Yeah. So that's a really good thing too. I'm glad you're doing that. That's great.
Yeah, it's been really good.
So can you I know we've talked a lot about how you've coped with anxiety and that. Do you mind just giving our viewers just in tip form, like what to do kind of, again, to kind of calm themselves down when they're having an anxiety attack or that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is don't try to stop the anxiety. think about it in terms of a rational sense, or if you want to change the aspect of it, try to do a behavioral change. So listen to music, or write it down and close the book, or just allow yourself to rely on your supports, right? So making sure you're calling that friend or calling that support person and saying, I'm dealing with this, can we talk about it? And get help from your doctor and get that second opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the biggest thing is, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Absolutely.
It's a normal thing. There's nothing wrong with you. It's normal. If you need to take, medication, whatever it might be, therapy, then...
Yeah. At the end of the day, you do what you need to do to be the best version of yourself for your kids, right?
Absolutely.
So even if we're feeling worried about the shame and the guilt, recognize that you getting help is the best thing for your children, and that's what they deserve, right? They really need the best version of you.
Yeah, I agree. Zakhiyya, thank you so much for sharing your life experiences and journey with us. I know it's a complicated, something that's kind of sometimes tough to talk about, mental illness, and I'm glad that you shared it with our viewers. It's something very important, and I thank you again for sharing that. But at this time, I'm going to ask you some more kind of general personal questions, just to get to know you a bit better.
Sure.
Okay, so we'll start off with, what is something about you that no one else knows?
Oh, I have the most epic shower concerts and car concerts. I love to sing in the shower and in the car.
Oh, that's great.
And sometimes it's so loud, I'm pretty sure our neighbors can hear me sing. So there's been a few times where people at stoplights have looked over and just laughed because I'm dancing and singing in my car.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. And actually, that leads me to my next question. Is that your hidden talent, or do you have another one? Or?
Oh, goodness. I wish I could sing. That would be really great. I love to write, and my hidden talent is I would love to write a book one day. I love writing.
That's great. What kind of things do you write about?
Oh, everything. Fiction. I write motivational stuff. I write poetry. I really like to write.
Good for you. Yeah. That's great. That's great. That's a great skill to have.
Yeah,
it really is.
It's a nice release.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you say you're stubborn?
Oh, my husband would say I'm stubborn. I'm stubborn about certain things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What would you say is the most embarrassing thing you've ever done?
Oh, goodness. There's a lot of those.
Yeah.
I have had some wardrobe mishaps.
Oh, okay.
So, during a dance performance once, I had, my blouse almost came undone, but I caught it.
No.
I've had my skirt almost come undone, but I've caught it. So that's been quite embarrassing. When I was new to motherhood, actually, I went to a mom's group, and all these moms were put together, and I was just a hot mess with, dry shampoo, and I didn't realize that I had food in my hair.
Oh no!
And it wasn't like a little bit. It was like a whole wad of food in my hair, and I didn't know.
Oh,
so that was fun. That was quite nice. Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I hope to just be doing what I'm doing now. I would love to be on a bigger platform. I would love to do a TED Talk one day and just.
Or even motivational speaking, have a session for women out there.
That would be so fabulous. My hope is that I can just continue to inspire others.
That's great. That's great. How has COVID affected you the most, would you say?
COVID has changed my life, but kind of for the better.
Yeah.
Which is very strange, because I understand it's a pandemic and it's awful. For me personally, though, it's allowed me to be okay with myself and my own company and who I am.
Absolutely.
I used to be very, very extrovert, right? I had to see friends and I had to do this and I do that. And now I feel like I'm a little bit of a homebody now, and I'm okay with that.
I'll become homebodies now at this point, right?
I'm all right with that. And it sort of allowed me to grow as a person, and I found strength during COVID I didn't think I had.
That's great.
Yeah, it's been incredible.
That's great.
Yeah, in terms of personal growth.
Yeah, there you go. How old do you think is middle age?
Middle age to me is maybe 50.
50?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
50.
Middle of 100.
Middle of 100. Why not? Why not?
Is there a weird smell that you enjoy?
I love the smell of firewood, but I also really love the smell of coffee and peanut butter mixed together.
Oh,
I know it's
mixed together.
Yeah, like the smell of coffee and peanut butter. It's just it smells really good.
There you go. There you go. Maybe they'll come out with a candle like that.
Right? I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay.
What is the best advice someone has ever given you?
Don't be afraid of who you are, and don't be afraid to let your light shine.
Oh, that's very good advice.
Yeah.
What are some of your pet peeves?
People who walk slow or drive slow in front of you.
Oh my
I can't handle that.
Don't even get me started on that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I can't handle that at all. And when my food touches on a plate.
Oh, you don't like it? You're one of those,
I can't.
Are you? Oh,
like buffets are a nightmare to me. I'm the person at the buffet that has 4 different plates because it's, you know, just a little bit of food here and a little bit there, and I'll walk out with 4 plates because I don't like when my food touches.
And you know, and I'm completely different. I will put all the food in one pile, mix it all together, and eat it. I'm totally fine with that. Right? Oh, sometimes I get sick and I wonder why, but you know, there you go. There you go. Zakhiyya, it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much once again for sharing your story with us. Thank you for coming in. And I'm sure our viewers appreciate your journey through life with us as well.
Thank you so much.
Again.
Thanks.
And to our viewers out there, thank you so much for all your love and support. If you'd like to be on the Hunny Walia shows, please inbox us or message us. For more Hunny Walia shows, log on to our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, thank you so much and take care.